day number 5 of this West Coast storm we've been having. I guess the Sierra Nevadas are seriously getting pummeled with moisture, snowfall, pretty bad. Here, every night it snows. During the day, it's on and off. It's fairly warm. It's like today, it's in the mid 40s, but we're still having the weather. And at night, it snows again. I'm going to be going down to the creek. The thing that's dangerous about this snow is it's wet snow. And then when we add moisture to it, the trees, limbs on the trees break, trees come down. Where we're living, we're down you gotta pass through a forest road, and it's a gravel dirt road out into the I guess you would call it wilderness. It's 7 miles to a small town. They have basic needs there. There's a gas station, there's a small local supermarket. It's convenient. It takes it's 7 miles for us to get there. And again, we have to travel through BLM, national land, and then you get out to where we're at. So on the east side of us is national forest land, and to the south of us is national forest land, and to the west of us a timber company owns that land, and then to the north of us a timber company owns that land. So in Oregon, there's still a lot of timberland, mostly owned by private individuals and private companies. There's different zoning: forest land, forest reserve, farmland, agricultural. And, yeah, every night it seems like it's been snowing. It's supposed to improve, but it's going to be snowing again next week. The thing that's funny is we haven't had winter like this. I mean, weather like this. We haven't had weather like this most of the winter. Yesterday I came down here and it didn't record properly, so it didn't become footage on our last visit with you guys. Well, we got a lot going on here. With the forest land, and brings up something I talked about. I'll talk about it now. Hopefully this works for us. The USDA, United States Department of Agriculture, is supposed to be keeping track of who buys large parcels of land, especially agricultural, forest land. Major interests in the United States, things that control our natural resources, our food. And recently, they found out, and it wasn't because our government found out. What happened was in Canada Canada, an individual was purchasing a large section of land which had natural resources on it, and they questioned it. Whoop, slippery, which they should. That's what our USDA is supposed to be doing for us. And what it turned out is this individual had purchased large sections of land, particularly in the Pacific Northwest, and through the research they found out, and a private entity got involved with it, found out that this individual is the second largest private owner, or actually foreign owner of real estate in the United States, particularly natural resources. And the second largest. The largest, and it turns out they're on the East Coast, Maine area, northeast. And that company's from Canada, and they own timber company. This other individual, and you'll have to excuse me if I don't get the pronunciation right, it's Chao Chen is the person's name. He's a member of the Chinese Communist Party, which is interesting. So the second largest foreign largest landowner in the United States, the second largest, is a member of the Chinese Communist Party, which is interesting considering the tensions that the United States and China have. But yeah, the Chao Chen, look it up. He's a billionaire, Chinese Communist Party member. He's a billionaire, and he made his billions off of online gaming, gambling, some other things probably involved in that. I could assume, but I'm not going to. I'm not going to say it, but he owns online gambling. I think that's interesting about that. In China, the Communist Party, when they took over, I have to look up the date again. I think it might have been 1946, sometime around then. You might want to check that out, verify my dates. But when they took over, they made gambling in China illegal. So Chinese citizens cannot gamble. There's multiple things associated with that. You know, if you're gambling and you go too far into debt and you owe people money. I mean, in the United States, if you work for the government or a government contractor, or if you're in the military or anything such as that, right? Our government is concerned about those types of things, because when you're in debt like that, people will do almost anything to get out of debt, and people will hold that over people. Basically, they blackmail you, they get you to do things, and you know, especially if you're a government contractor or something like that, you might be willing to give somebody some secrets that you're privy to that you shouldn't be giving out. Well, I mean, in China, it's illegal to gamble, but it's okay. Their government must think it's okay. The government must think it's okay, right? Because a member of their own party, the Chinese Communist Party, the people that are in charge of China, owns an online gaming company which makes billions of dollars. So everybody else can do it, but the Chinese can't. It's okay to own it and to profit from it, but you can't do it yourself. So you think about it, in our country or in their country, or in our country, we have issues. I mean, historically we've had issues with people outside of the United States owning property and world wars and such. I mean, coming into World War I, we had the Germans. They owned property in the United States, and they put up, at one point, the Germans put up the largest radio tower in the world at that time. It was like in the early 1912, I think it was, sometime around there. And they were able to send radio waves from the United States to Germany. And when the United States was having issues and they ended up getting into World War I, it was questioned, and it's still to this day thought that the Germans were using that radio tower to transmit information about ships and goings on in the United States. So the Chinese are buying up this land, and every once in a while you hear about it on the news. They bought a major meat packager and processor in the United States and stuff like that. But they're buying land, and they're buying a lot of it. And I mean, just recently we just had the weather balloon incident. So if they're buying land, I mean, the other thing that's with this is members of Congress. We won't talk about which members, but particular members, and it's just so happens to be a certain party, but in particular members ask the question of what land do like the Chinese own. And in China there isn't a clear line between government and private citizens and such. Basically, in their country, there is no differentiation between the two. If you own something in China, the government owns it. But members of our government question and asked, and private citizens and media outlets have asked, well, where is this land and who owns it? So they went to the USDA and asked. Well, the USDA doesn't keep that. They're in charge of that, and they're supposed to verify and approve these purchases. But just like any large institution or agency, you have people sitting at desks with stacks and stacks of paper, or they have computers with who knows how many files on them, and it's their job to go through and sort through this and then categorize it, and then it's supposed to be approved, everything that goes through it. But you know how that works. You know how that works. They're not. So the USDA was unable to come up with a complete list of who owns what and where. So we don't know who owns what and where. And if we don't know who owns what and where, do you think we know what they're doing on these pieces of property? If we don't know who, what, or where, how could we possibly know what they're doing with it? And we do know they have the technology to spy, jam, do what they need to do. You know, we like to say that China is our largest trading partner. But I think if you look up the word partner, at least in my mind, a partner is something that you share something with, that there's mutual gain, there's mutual trust. You know? But China, is there trust? Is it a 50-50 partnership? Or are they gaining more from us than we gain from them? You gotta study your history. People don't study their history. They're too stuck on me, and today. If you go back in history, the Chinese, if you think about human nature, you go back, right? But the Chinese were not treated well in history. The Europeans took full advantage of them. And for lack of a proper word for it, or right now I don't have one, but basically the Europeans screwed them. They screwed China and they stuck it to them. The Europeans wanted something and they basically stole it and then ruined the country. Ruined it for a long time. Turned generations of people into opium addicts. Look it up. And then people got rich doing it. No. Countries got rich doing it. Countries went to war over it. Look it up. But in a way, the Chinese owe it to the world. If you think about it that way. It's not nice. It's not fair. But they're not our trading partner, and they're not our friends. They're not. And they did study their history, and they're returning the favor. They're going to return the favor. No, you go back, you gotta go through, you gotta study your real history. You know, they say, one of the sayings is, history is written by the victor, the person that won. And that means that that's not what happened. The person that won, it's always written very nicely through rose-colored glasses. But look, check it out. The Chinese, remember the Chinese Communist Party is in the United States purchasing large tracts of land. They got plenty of land in China, so why is he in the United States buying large tracts of land? Think about it. Most drugs, think about drugs. What do drugs do? Drugs make you feel good right now. But what does it do to you? Right? It isn't about today, it's about tomorrow. In the United States, we're about today. You know, one of the sayings is, follow the money. Want to find out what the problem is? Follow the money. Well, back to the trade. One of the things that's close to me that I could talk about with the trade, shipping containers. Why can you buy shipping containers fairly inexpensively? If you think about it, the amount of steel that's in one of those shipping containers, and then the amount of labor that went into producing them, they don't sell them for that. They don't sell them for that. You can buy a shipping container for a couple of thousand. You can get a 40-foot high cube for 4,000 or 5,000 delivered to you. And they're brand new. Brand new. Where are they coming from? They're coming on ships. Why are they selling them? Because they're going back empty. The ships are going back empty. And these shipping containers are being stored at shipping ports or being shipped all over the country, deposited on people's property or in storage yards. So there's a trade surplus, and China's trading more to us than we're trading to them, and they're here buying our property. And I don't think they're buying it just to have property in the United States. Some of the property they're buying, most people don't want. They're buying it for another reason. And the thing is we don't know where they're buying it, and we don't know what they're doing, or who else is doing it. It's just something that I noticed the other day. Anyways, the snow's nice and white because there's a fresh layer on top. Nice and quiet. This weather breaks. Been using part of the weather as an excuse of why I'm not getting certain things done. But I would call that procrastination. I have to get that solar done, because without the solar, we bleed money every day. I have to charge batteries. And the solar's not doing anything for me. I got 400 amp hours of 48 volt solar batteries, and 16,000 watts of power that I could be generating and storing. And we're not doing it. That hill, it's like working on wet, greasy. If you picture standing on a road that's on a 45-degree angle, and you coat it with 2 inches of axle grease, and you try to stand up on it. I gotta get that done. I gotta get the rest of the infrastructure put in. We gotta get that done. I ran the water line from the well area up to where the house is gonna be. And then I ran power from where the house is gonna be, well, the power conduit from where the house is gonna be over to the solar, and then over to the mill house. I gotta get that mill house done. Got footprints over here. I gotta get that mill house done. I could be milling lumber even if it was raining out. I gotta get the pump house done. This weather, the temporary covers that I had put up, home covers, both ruined. I used a sailboat that we had over the cargo containers to act as a little bit of shelter, and that tore in two. And then we had one of those foldable covers over the well pump, and that got crushed. Anyways, I'm assuming you know what the acronym ASSUME means, right? I assumed that my temporary covers or shelters were good enough for now, and I'd have the real thing up. But yeah, I assumed I gotta get that done.